If you had to describe God in a single word, what would it be?
If you could reduce everything that God requires of you to one word, what would it be?
If you could conceive a word that turns an enemy into a friend, what would it be?
If you could focus your life on just one thing
and knew that it would completely fulfill you,
what would it be?
Just love.
just love.
Just love.
Good morning, everyone. You look great. I'm so grateful that you're here, and your worship has been amazing. And I love the simplicity of the last worship song of Jesus, We Love You. I mean, that's the whole purpose for us being here is just to express that Jesus, we love you, and we want you in our life, and we want you at the center of our life, and we want to obey you. And so we're going to jump in here in 1 second. But I'm sort of looking at you. If I'm looking at you funny, it's because I'm trying to figure out if you had a good weekend or not. And you're not showing me if you're not. But we had an excellent weekend. Really, just an excellent day yesterday. In fact, here's a picture that sort of represents our weekend. That represents our weekend. That's our granddaughter Claire. She's our first granddaughter. She turned 1 year old, and so we partied like crazy, right? So that's Claire. Doesn't she steal your heart? Yeah, she's excellent. So we're in this series, and it's called Just Love. And it's a simple title, but it has so many facets. Even the title, Just Love, has got so many facets to it. And so we're working our way through a particular passage of Scripture. And so it's 1 Corinthians 13, and today is the fourth message in that series. And so we are now embedded into these qualities of love. So I have this quality or this tendency that I'm not really very proud of. I have this need. I don't know if you can relate to this or not, but I have this need. I have this need for you to think more of me than I really am. I have a desire to be seen as something more than I am. Because I have this threatening suspicion that I'm less. And the problem with that quality is that it drains out an ability to love. And I want to show that to you over the next few moments. So, for me to live the most meaningful life, the most excellent life that God has designed for me to live, a life where love pours out of me no matter who's in front of me, there are some things about me that have to be removed. And so that's why when you turn to 1 Corinthians 13 and there is this lifting up of love being the most excellent, most meaningful, most powerful way to live, and then it turns to these 15 qualities of love. The list only gets into the third quality until it begins to turn negative. There is that love is patient, love is kind, and then suddenly love is not. And love is not 8 more times. 8 out of the 15 qualities are these not qualities. These things that have to be removed from my life in order for love to actually flow out of my life. And so the Bible has to define love this way, because some things have to be not present if I'm to become a person characterized by this love. And so today we move to the fourth and the fifth qualities. Pastor Aaron Morris did an excellent job really interpreting and sort of laying out for us that love is not jealous. And now these next two sort of stitch together with that second quality. And so it begins this way. It begins with the Word of God, the supernatural Word of God that speaks into our lives. And it begins 1 Corinthians 12, last phrase, verse 31, and I show you a still more excellent way. He means a more excellent, an exceedingly excellent way to live, an exceeding way to base your life and live out of it. And then verse 4, he begins to describe the facets of this love. And we've said, let's call it a 15-facet large cut diamond. And so he begins there in verse 4. Love is patient. Love is kind and is not jealous. Now today, love does not brag and is not arrogant. It does not brag and is not arrogant. This is the Word of God. It speaks supernaturally into our lives. And so it produces, right? It produces a big question. There's a big question around these not qualities. And for today, it's this. The question is, so why? Why does love refuse to brag? Why does love actually hate something? Why does love hate pride? Let's answer that. And to know why, you've got to know this love. You've got to know what this love actually is. Because if this love is just friendly, happy feelings toward another, in other words, affection, the Bible has a word for that kind of love, it's phileo, then, it actually doesn't make sense that it refuses something and that it hates something. If this love is just a gush of emotion, the dump of dopamine into your nervous system where you just sort of feel this rush and gush of feelings or emotion, then, that's attraction. And the Bible has a word for that kind of love. It's called eros, but it doesn't really make sense that kind of love refuses something or hates something. But what if this word is agape? What if this word is a completely different kind of love? What if it's honestly a kind of love that so moves us beyond our ability that we have to call on God for it to even be in our lives? What if this love means an act of self-sacrifice for the highest good of another, not necessarily dependent on how you feel about that person? And so we keep defining this word the same way over and over, because here's a foundation that I want in your life. Here's a foundation I want in my life. What does it mean to love? What it means to love for a follower of Christ does not, first of all, mean a gush of emotion. What it means for a Christ follower to love is that in my mind and will I intend an act of self-sacrifice for the highest good of another, not necessarily dependent on my feelings. And that's revolutionary. I'm telling you it is. There's no contemporary society, religion, philosophy that claims that love as their own. Nobody says it's the most important way to live. Nobody. Except the New Testament and except followers of Christ. And that's what makes following Jesus so radical and so revolutionary. And that's what makes this love refuse some things, and it's what makes this love hate some things. And so it hates bragging in oneself, and it hates pride in oneself. And here's why: this kind of love refuses to live by comparison, the poison of comparison. And so let's answer the questions. Just two simple questions. Why does love hate pride? And the first question, why does love refuse bragging? Let's jump in. Look at that word, the word for brag. So the this word has a root in the biblical language, and the root of this word, I kid you not, you're going to remember this from now on. The root word for the word brag is windbag. Windbag. It means to lift yourself up, to seem more significant, more important than another person. There's the word. And look, if social media has taught us anything over the last decade, it has taught us that we have this insatiable need to show ourselves as better than we really are. Instagram has made billions off of that thing in us. And the use of in social media especially, the use of the humble brag has become a new art form of creative pride and arrogance. You know what the humble brag is, right? It's the false modesty, the false modesty in 140 characters that just, with the pretext of just telling, how great you actually are. Don't you love the humble brags? I just feel so blessed that I receive Outstanding Salesman of the Year. Don't deserve it. Hashtag third straight year. My husband just surprised me with tickets to the Caribbean. I'm so hacked off that he spent so much. Hashtag all is forgiven. I mean, don't you want to reply to those? Reply, hashtag, I just threw up a little in my throat. Don't you sort of want to do that? Yeah. Do you know there's a new study from Harvard Business School that suggests that sort of self-promotion while pretending to be modest actually works very much against you in interviews and in social media and in every way. And their study has a lot of implications. I'm going to pull down one. So when comparing all-out braggarts and a complainer and a humble bragger, in comparing them in terms of preference, humble bragger comes in third. We would rather listen to a complainer than a humble bragger. In fact, their results go on. Not only were people associated with the humble brag liked less than someone who blatantly brags or complains, listen to this, but they were viewed as less sincere and less attractive. Harvard Business School just told us that if you humble brag, you're ugly. But we see that and we feel that in us, don't we? Look, here's the point. Look, the point is this. Look at how that destroys any chance of love. There's the point. For a Christ follower, a person who is seeking to form their life around Christ, here's one of the reasons that you would hate, that you would refuse bragging in your own life is because it shuts off your ability to love. When all your energy, listen to this, when all your energy is focused on getting another to feel less significant than you, how will you ever see how much they need your love, your affirmation, your encouragement, your act of self-sacrifice for their good? The reason love refuses to brag is that it destroys any possibility to love in the moment. That's why you should hate it. And this quality has a blood sport version of it played out in suburbia where we live. And the blood sport version of that is comparing our kids to Sam and Susie's kids. If your name is Sam or Susie, I don't know you, okay? And so that's actually a blood sport version of it. That I've got to be convinced that my kid is smarter and better in sports and cooler than Susie or Sam's. And it only has this effect. It makes parents make crazy demands on their children. Because it makes your kids an object of your own self-esteem. It makes you a little crazy when your kids don't make you look good in front of the other parents. And so if that's you, look, can I just say something in total and complete love? You're a little sick. but I am too, because it lives in me. Our souls have a sickness. Bragging comes from, this is important, bragging comes from a broken belief that my significance can come only from comparing myself to another. That is a broken belief. If I'm smarter, more gifted, better looking, better dressed, richer, have cooler friends than you, then I need you to know that in some way. Because if I can make you believe that I am better in some way, and if I can make you treat me as if I am more significant than you, then it just might, I hope it might make me believe it too. And so bragging is just a broken plea for you to feel significant. And I'm going to come back to this at the end of the message, of what we do about that broken plea. But there's a second question. We can't finish until we answer both questions. And so why does this kind of love refuse bragging in itself? And why does this kind of love hate pride? Love hates something. And here love hates pride. And so look at it. That's the next quality there. Love does not brag and it is not arrogant. And so look at the word arrogant there. This word occurs 7 times in the New Testament, and here's why that's important. 6 of those 7 are found in 1 Corinthians. 6 of those 7 times it's repeated. It's to this church, this Corinthian church. And Corinth, as I told you, as a church, was a really messed up church. It was full of immorality and backbiting and selfishness and factions and worldliness. And the core of it was this attitude, arrogance. The word actually is literally puffed up. When you think of the word puffed up, what do you think of? I actually think of those kind of Cheetos that are like the round ones, that are real light, and you put it in your mouth, and what happens? They evaporate. They're all puffed up, but they have no substance. I don't even know that I put anything in my mouth. All I've got is this yellow residue. What was that? That may describe the inside of an arrogant soul. Let's define it. Pride or arrogance is an attitude of self-importance or self-exaltation toward another. And so it's a relational quality. Pride as a relational quality is it's an attitude of self-importance or self-exaltation toward others. And so what's its problem? Why is it a problem to be arrogant? It's because it can easily make you feel contempt for another soul. And maybe worse, indifferent to another soul. And what does that do? It drains love out of you. That's why love has not qualities. That it is not jealous, that it does not brag, that it is not arrogant. And so, we'll admit anything. We'll admit any sort of shortcoming in American culture today. I mean, we'll confess the worst, most terrible things. But, it's very, very, very difficult to find anyone to say, yeah, I'm proud and arrogant. And so maybe you think you don't struggle with that. So where does your impatience with others come from? If not arrogance. I'm the most important one here. You're messing with my time or my... Where does your anger come from when somebody doesn't treat you with respect? Where does that come from? Where does your self-pity come from? That's a hidden one. That's one that is behind, 2 layers of stuff. Where does it come from? Your self-pity. Why do you always think you're the victim? And so let's make it simple. Pride is just extreme self-focus. And I can only tell you that it just makes your soul sick. And so self-importance makes your soul sick. Look, here's the final test. If your big silent question about everyone is this, I wonder what they think of me, you've got the sickness. C.S. Lewis wrote that pride is spiritual cancer. It eats up the very possibility of love or contentment or even common sense. But let's move. Let's move to remedy. Let's move to remedy. And so how do we drain this urge to brag and lift ourselves up to another? How do we slay the dragon of pride or arrogance in our life? I'm going to give you two really simply stated things, but they become a lifetime of spiritual practice in your life. But I'm going to just give you these two. How do I drain these two things out of my life? Number one, do this. Number one, pursue the freedom of humility. Pursue the freedom. Look at humility as if it were freedom. Pursue the freedom of humility. And so if you're going to develop humility, you got to start with defining it correctly. Because especially in the church, the American church, especially in the American church, pride masquerades as humility. Because I've seen it and I've done it. And that is where you go, hey, I'm nothing. I need you to know I'm nothing. Hey, I'm nobody. I'm not. No, don't look at them. Look at me. I'm nothing. I'm really. That my best quality is my humility. It sort of masquerades. Pride masquerades as humility. And so you got to define it correctly. And so I read a sociologist several years ago who said we're all con artists. Start there. I'm a con artist, trying to convince others and myself that I'm more than I am or something that I'm not. And so humility will not be constantly thinking about how I'm nothing and I'm nobody. It will not be that. It will actually be the absence of thinking of ourselves at all, as C.S. Lewis said. And so, look, what does that mean? It looks like this. What does humility look like relationally? It looks like this. It's learning to put such high focus on whoever is in front of you that you actually forget about yourself completely. That you put so much focus on whoever is in front of you that you actually forget to think about yourself at all. There is relational humility. It's the practice inside yourself as a quality of yourself. It's just the practice of living in reality. It's the practice of living in the truth of things. It's because here's the real truth about you. I know you. I have these hackers. They get into your email. I read it, and I know you. And here's what I know about you, that you're a mixed bag of light and dark. You know I was kidding about that. You all just kind of went, you know. It's a joke, right? I don't have hackers, okay? Here's the truth about you, and it's the truth about me. We're a mixed bag of light and dark. We're a mixed bag of giftedness and non-talent. We're a mixed bag of good qualities and really bad ones. And so pride is self-inflation, and humility is the pin that bursts that inflated balloon. It's just living in the truth of things. Humility constantly seeks to get rid of the self-deception and just live in the reality of things. And so here's a starting point. As a spiritual practice, here's a starting point. Do this. Constantly seek to discover and tell yourself the truth about yourself. And a starting point is this. Make this declaration. God is the source of everything good in my life. God is the source of everything good in my life. That's the starting point. I learned this several years ago. A friend who was a better friend than I even knew at the time. I'd preached once, and after a message, he said to me, David, you've been given a real gift. And I said, well, thank you very much. And he said, oh, I wasn't complimenting you. I was complimenting God. What did he mean? He knew the source of all gifts. And he was hoping to teach me to know the source of any gift. And it made me realize something important. In fact, it's something that Paul tries to tell this church at Corinth. Look at what he says to them in 4:7. So he says, For who makes you different from anyone else? What do you have that you did not receive? Think about that. What do you, in the ultimate sense, what do you have? What do you possess that you didn't receive? We didn't create anything. Everything we have, everything we are, we have received from the Father of lights, from whom every good gift comes down from. But there's a second thing to do. I said there were these two things. The second thing to do is then to feed your true significance every day. And so I'm going back. Remember I said that bragging is this broken plea for significance. And all that we have left is that we seek to find our significance from comparing ourselves favorably to others, no matter how self-deceived we have to become in order to do it. And so look at this as a spiritual practice. We've never talked about this, I don't think, as a spiritual practice. Think about this in your life every day. Go and do this every day. And that is as a spiritual practice, get in God's presence and find your identity in who He declares you to be. So jettison comparison. Stop thinking about where you measure to someone else. Turn to God and say, I want to find my identity, I want to find my significance in who you declare me to be. And what does that mean? Find His unconditional love. You'll find incredible significance in that for all the ways that you don't measure up. Find His forgiveness for all the ways that you have violated others. Find it in His forgiveness. Here's a wonderful declaration to make for this spiritual practice, and that is for you to just come to believe this. Just declare this over and over. I am very small, but I am very significant to my Father in heaven. I, by myself, am very small, but I am significant. Very significant to my Father in heaven. And what makes me significant is simply His love for me. What is it that makes you significant to God? It's His love for you. That's what makes you significant. It's not found in what you can offer Him. It's not that He finds you or me morally or ethically superior. What makes me significant is the price of love that He was willing to pay for my rescue. What makes me significant? His action. What makes me significant? His love. What makes me significant? It's what He was willing to do for me through Jesus dying on the cross in my place. What makes me significant is that He created me and that He created me in His image. And so I have nothing to offer Him that He needs. He gains no benefit from me that He doesn't already possess. And so my significance comes from the identity, from who He declares me to be. Write these phrases down. You're going to see them as they scroll on the side screens. This is your spiritual practice every day. With all of your faith, believe that you are unconditionally loved by God. Start there. Add to that, with all of your faith, come to believe that you are totally forgiven by God. Now, if you have asked Christ into your life, you've placed your faith in Him, you've made Him Lord and leader of your life, then this is the realm in which you live, totally forgiven by God. Add to that, with all your faith, accept this, because of what Jesus did on the cross for you. When God looks at you, He sees you through Jesus, and therefore you are fully delighted in by Him. You actually have nothing to offer God, but because of what God has done for you through Jesus, He is fully delighted in you. Number 4, add this, with all your faith, even though maybe you've never felt accepted by others, know this for sure, that God created you, that He redeemed you, and that you are completely accepted by God if you've embraced Christ into your life. And there is a result. You can know, you can feel, you can begin to taste that you are fully complete in Him. And what will happen? The source of your significance will begin to transfer. And the depth of your significance will begin to transform. And then one day you will wake up, and maybe it's almost imperceptible, but one day you will wake up and you will find that you have no pleasure in degrading another in order for you to feel more significant. And then you will realize that you can truly love them. Let's bow together.